technology allows for information to be spread at the speed of light. And I think we saw that during the Brexit referendum. We saw it the election of Donald Trump. We saw it during COVID and the anti-vax movement, and we've seen it in the war in Ukraine, and now with the debates and discussions that are taking place on energy. So disinformation is plenty out there.
We're fighting a war. We are in an information warfare currently, and we need to have citizens and society on our side of that fight. And we could only have citizens and society on our side of that fight if we truly manage to explain to those citizens what is the current situation and who is trying to attack our values.
Misinformation is increasingly gray. We no longer are having quite as many of these gross fabrications where it's very obviously made up. Those still exist, but increasingly we're seeing these sort of gray area examples of misinformation where there's maybe some grains of truth and there's some elaborations around the truth, but it's harder to fact check and it's harder to really tease out what is true and what is false. And so it's requiring us to be a little bit more nuanced in our fight against misinformation.
We cannot leave the field to those who have an interest in sowing fear and division and in undermining democratic debate. The EU is ready to take up our responsibilities in this fight. We have been making progress on several fronts, and we have been doing this the European way.
We're no longer seeing folks aggregating in just one or two of the major platforms. They're on those platforms, but they're also in a whole constellation of smaller platforms. They're also in places like closed messaging apps. The challenge that this fragmentation poses is that it's much harder for us to identify what the misinformation is, to track all of the new narratives that are being spread, and then to correct them.
We're also thinking about how we can support audiences and users as they access information. What can we give them in terms of clues or cues to think about the source, think about the quality of the information they're about to click through and look at. The About This Result feature is one example of where we're giving people some information about the source, who owns it, how long it's been creating content for, those kinds of things. So giving more context to the user at the point they need it.
We also need to strengthen those sources that provide reliable and trustworthy information.
So Google has contributed €25 million to the launch of the European Media and Information Fund. This is a fund that's run by the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation and the European University Institute. And so far we've seen around 33 different projects being funded. All of those been independently assessed, and we're seeing through that fund lots of different organisations coming together across boundaries to come up with new ideas, new solutions, and really start to make sure that the users, as they're accessing information, really have that context and that knowledge before they click through to the link.
What we are excited about is to look into the phenomena from many different angles and try to understand how you can approach it not only from fact-checking perspective and identifying and understanding the trends, what is out there, but to be basically way ahead of this information and create positive narratives, enable a civil society organization to get to the mainstream with positive narratives.
We see public libraries fulfilling a digital facilitation role, but also really importantly fulfilling a role as a physical space where people can come together, where they can learn from each other, where they can learn basic digital skills but also have opportunities to connect in different ways.
I think the most important trend is that I believe that the new and next generation of Europeans doesn't need any new sort of tech skills or tech solutions, because they already possess those skills. But what we need to explain to them is that, you know, the values and democratic achievements that we have achieved up until now are under threat, and they're the ones that in the long run will be there to protect them. That peace and prosperity took a long time to be achieved, and they need to know that they need to use all their tech skills to be able to get to that protection.